Hey, it's Lara here. I'm back with this week's Witchy Wednesday astrology forecast, and this one's for the week of June 26th to July 2nd, 2019. And July 2nd is a total solar eclipse in the sign of Cancer. So that's what we're going to spend most of the time talking about in this video. And we're going to go through each of the signs and talk about, what life area that this eclipse, and in fact, this set of eclipses, because eclipses come in sort of families, and I'll speak to that in a little bit here. But so where these eclipses will be impacting you. Okay, so we're going to get to that. And before I do that, I just want to say, first off, if you hear a little background noise in terms of traffic and that, I have my window open, which I don't normally do when I do these videos, but it's a little humid. Having a bad hair day. It's just a little stuffy in here, so I really needed to keep the window open. So hopefully you can't hear too much background noise. Let me know though, because I'm curious. If you can, then I'll solve that. I actually just ordered a new tripod and a new microphone to give a try for these videos and some other stuff I have planned. So, on that note, I love it when you leave a comment. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for, liking the channel. And if you follow me on Facebook and Instagram, I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the interactions there. And if you don't follow me there, the links are below, and you can come check it out if you're interested. And of course, if you're interested in a reading, then get in touch at my website. The link is below there. Okay, so without further ado here, let's get on with it. I'm titling this video about the Cancer eclipse that's approaching, Homeward Bound, because this is all about what and who feels like home. That is the theme of Cancer in a nutshell, and we'll break that down a little bit more as we go on here. But this new moon, it's a total solar eclipse, and right off the hop, I'll let you know that the cardinal signs of Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn will feel this eclipse and these set of eclipses most. Okay, the last round of eclipses in Aries or in Leo Aquarius, there's still some reverberation from that, but those eclipses were felt more by the fixed signs, right? Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, and Scorpio. And then previous, to that, it was the mutable signs, Pisces, Virgo, Sagittarius, Gemini. But that's going back, quite a few years now. So, but this set of eclipses has an impact most profoundly on the cardinal signs or people that have specific angles, planets, points that are in contact with the eclipse points, right? So if you have something around 15 to 15 degrees of the cardinal signs, then you're going to be feeling this, no doubt. And also, if you have your own personal lunar nodes, if you were born with your lunar nodes, North Node and South Node, in Cancer, Capricorn, or Aries, Libra, the cardinal signs, you'll also be feeling this, okay? And if you don't know where your nodes are, then, and they're always opposite the sky from each other, then having a reading can sort that out. I do one specific reading on sort of a soul path, what your soul path is, and I address the nodes in that reading. Things are going to look a little bit different, moving forward. I've been talking about some tweaks to the website. I've had some things in the hopper for quite a while now, and gradually, those will start to unfold, and you'll see, as we move through the next few months, different offerings and that kind of thing. Realistically, probably closer to the fall, just because summer comes, kids are off school, best laid plans and all that, right? So, but it is in the works right now. So anyway, I normally tell you where the moon is at, and I haven't done that. I haven't even noted it, but let me just take a look here, and I'll give you that information because we know that it's approaching Cancer, obviously, with that eclipse happening. But we've got, on the time of this recording, we have the moon in Aries, the sign of Aries, and then it's entering Taurus on Thursday, the 27th. And then the moon will enter Gemini on Saturday, the 29th, and then it will enter the sign of Cancer when we will have the eclipse. So it actually enters Cancer on the Monday night, Eastern Standard Time, that is. And then we have the eclipse Tuesday afternoon at specifically 3:16 p.m. Eastern Standard. So eclipses happen when they always happen on new moons or full moons, and they always happen close to the nodal axis, right? That's what makes an eclipse. When the moon is in close contact with the nodes, and that's what we call eclipses, or that's what causes eclipses. So, and the nodes are the axis of our destiny, so to speak, kind of like our past and our future direction. What we need to release and let go of, what is no longer serving us, what we have become very well versed in, and we now need to grow from that. And then, you know, our sort of future direction, or what our soul wants us to become more of, wants us to embrace, wants us to continue to learn and explore. So this is why eclipses are often associated with karmic events, right? You'll hear people talk about that. They help illuminate our karmic path in some way, right? And they're kind of like nudges from the universe, either saying, yep, you're on the right track here, you're on the path, or you have been led astray, or you've wandered off your path, so time to get back on. So we will see and experience events, whether they be internal or external. Oftentimes solar eclipses are more external events, and lunar eclipses are more things that kind of happen on the internal level, right? Because the moon rules our emotions. It's sort of internal, external. Excuse me, sun and moon. So, kind of the more we've strayed off the path or been led astray, the more obvious, these events and circumstances and emotional triggers and that kind of thing tend to be. So it's not bad, it's either the universe giving us kind of a pat on the back, or the universe giving us maybe a bit of a, pinch on the cheek, wake up kind of thing. So as I mentioned, eclipses happen in pairs or families, right? And they last for around 18 to 24 months, because that's how long the nodes spend in each sign. And so it will take the North Node, for example, 18 years to go around to the place it is. So this eclipse on July 2nd is happening in the sign of Cancer, where the North Node currently is. So we won't have another eclipse season like this, specifically with the North Node and Cancer related, for another 18 years. In 9 years' time, that halfway point, it will be on the same axis, right? Cancer, Capricorn, but the nodal placements will be reversed. So the South Node will be in Cancer in 9 years' time, and then 18 years, the North Node will be back in Cancer. So that's how that works. So this family of eclipses on the Cancer, Capricorn axis, it will be lingering. We'll be experiencing this. The last one is July 6th, 2020. And so we're in this, for a while, this set of eclipse energies. And then after this one on July 2nd, we will have the next one on July 16th, 17th, depending where you live. And that will be a partial full moon lunar eclipse in Capricorn. So And it's a lunar eclipse because it's a full moon, right? It's a solar eclipse because it's a new moon. That's how it works. So this is the axis, Cancer Capricorn. You've heard me talk about this quite a bit because we have a lot of stuff transpiring in Cancer Capricorn in general this year. And so previous videos we've addressed this, right, at length for different reasons. But this is the axis of our security. It's the axis of parenting. You know, the divine mother, that's Cancer. The divine father, that's Capricorn. You know, our emotional security, Cancer, versus our sort of material security, that's Capricorn. So the nurturing, you know, qualities of Cancer versus the more authoritarian qualities of Capricorn. Our inner world, Cancer, versus our outer public life, Capricorn, right? So to give you sort of a hint of what themes are maybe arising for you specifically over the time of these eclipses, back in July 13th, 2018, last summer, we got a little taste, right, of what this eclipse cycle will bring to us. Because, so that was kind of like the very first chapter, almost like the prologue of this eclipse cycle, of this, our personal eclipse story, so to speak. If you think of the eclipse, the set of eclipse families as they're, you know, they're all connected, and when they're in the same family, and it's like the unfolding of a story. And so we had the first little taste of that back in July because we had the nodes dip back into Cancer and Capricorn, and so we had that one event, that one eclipse, and then the rest of the cycle, Aquarius Leo cycle, played out, and now we are really moving into, you know, the story. So that Cancer, like I said, that one on July 13th last year was kind of like the prologue, and now we're entering officially chapter 1 sort of thing. And so, and if you want to look back even further to get a sense here, the last time we experienced eclipses on the Cancer Capricorn axis was 2009 to 2011, but that was one of those times when the nodes were in the reverse, right? So we actually had the south node in Cancer, the north node in Capricorn. Now it's the other way around. So you can look back just for general themes because it was along the same axis. And prior to that, it was around 2000, 2002. So the nodes would have been in the same placement. And then way back, if you want to go back even further, around 1982, 81 to 83 kind of thing. So think back to those years. Think about what was unfolding for you at that time, specifically regarding the Cancer Capricorn themes. And we're going to dig a little bit deeper, specifically into the Cancer themes, because that's what this eclipse is rooted in. And we'll get to the Capricorn ones when we talk, you know, a little bit more in depth when we talk about that eclipse that's happening on the 16th, 17th. But, you know, see how these themes relate to whatever houses in your chart that Cancer Capricorn fall. If you don't know that, I've spoken about those in previous videos the last few weeks. I've also, in this video, we'll talk very specifically about the house that Cancer sits for you. So I'll shed some light on that. But I was thinking back myself about what transpired, you know, in these life areas for me. And for me, it's the 5th and 11th houses. Specifically, I have Cancer in the 11th. And, you know, just very briefly, that has to do with friendships, organizations, groups, networks, hopes and dreams for the future, these kinds of things. And then the 5th house is children, children you're associated with. It is your creative projects, creative self-expression, you know, individual creativity, what sparks joy. So that's where it happened for me. And I had some things going on that I was thinking about. You know, I started high school way back in the 80s, early 80s. And, you know, it was a bit of a struggle. Grade 9's never a super fun time. And my son has just experienced that. He got through grade 9, and there were some bumps, but all ended, all's well that ends well. But so for me, it was that, finding my tribe, that sort of thing. I also, on the creative front, I had the opportunity to be in my first, play, my first musical, and that was kind of cool. And then around the 2000 set of eclipses, we bought our first house, which is the house we still live in, just around that time, and in 99 kind of thing. But we were moving in, we were setting up house and that sort of thing, entertaining a lot, entertaining our tribe a lot at the time. And at that time, I also I quit grad school, and started a home business with a friend. So interesting, really interesting how it really does relate. And there's lots more I could talk about, but that just gives you a kind of idea, right? If you think back on your own life, what was transpiring. So overall, the themes that might come up for us during this specific Cancer Capricorn, like Cancer Capricorn eclipse cycles in general, are things like work-life balance. Our public life versus our private life, right? Public is Capricorn, private is Cancer. Are sort of the more practical side of us, Capricorn, versus the more emotional, intuitive side, which is Cancer. Issues with our parents or parenting or parental figures, the mother and the father, or our nurturing and authoritarian figures, our own parenting issues, self-parenting, these kinds of things. Healing ancestral trauma, emotional healing, even our worldly sort of ambitions or our career goals may be pulled into focus over the course of this eclipse cycle. Taking more responsibility for our lives and maturing in some way, right? Masculine and feminine power dynamics. Government versus the people, on a more kind of a larger scale. So these are all kind of general themes that can play out over this eclipse cycle. And a solar eclipse specifically, which is what we're having, right? We're having a total solar eclipse on July 2nd. That is when the moon stands between the sun and the earth. And so it cuts off the light, right? It cuts off the light from the sun. And so it's like, I may have used this analogy before on a previous video when I was talking about the eclipse, but think about standing in a room and, it's broad or it's bright. It's probably, let's put it this way. It's nighttime or you're in like a basement kind of thing, right? But the lights are all on. And so you can see everything clearly. But then the power goes out or somebody turns off the lights or whatever. And you're in the dark. And so things seem very different in the dark, right? And then the light goes back on and it's kind of like you see the room with through a different set of eyes, or it's a different perspective, or perhaps if there were other people in the room with you, they've moved locations, or you noticed something that you hadn't noticed before. The lights went out, right? So it's kind of like when the lights go out, we're forced to kind of whatever's triggered it maybe initiate on an internal level in the darkness, so to speak, right? And we're forced to kind of look within to navigate in the dark, right? Like we use our other senses. Our other senses are heightened in the dark because we can't rely so much on our sense of sight of what's in front of our face, kind of thing. So that's kind of the energy, right, around eclipses. Eclipses in general bring turning points. They can bring big news and events and changes and sort of, kind of fated or karmic happenings, meetings, these sorts of things. And that, I don't want you to think when I say karmic or fated, don't think of the negative connotations. Sometimes crises happen. And because life, is, it's just by the nature, it's not all up all the time. It's not all good all the time. It's not all light all the time. If it was always light and sunshine and rainbows and unicorns all the time, we wouldn't know how to appreciate that, right? It's like you have to have those polar opposites. You have to have that juxtaposition and that contrast. You don't know joy if you've never known sadness or grief, right? That's the way it is. And so if challenging circumstances happen, that's life's way of sort of moving us forward and saying, okay, this is what's on the table right now. And, how are we going to deal with this? What are we going to learn from it? How are we going to grow from this? How are we going to move towards our true calling and those kinds of things, right? So essentially here, Cancer, where this eclipse is happening, Cancer is all about wanting to feel safe and secure. And so the questions that are sort of the overarching themes during this eclipse are, it's like, where do I belong, right? What and who feels like home to me? And we get this sense of nesting. We crave emotional safety and security and nurturing. And it's really, it's a time to pay attention during the course of this eclipse, in Cancer specifically, to those specific things. Am I feeling emotionally safe and secure? If not, what in my environment, psyche, circumstance, what have you, is causing that, right? What can I do to get a better sense of emotional security and stability, and to feel more safe and surrounded by people who have my back? And how can I nurture myself? How can I be my own mother, in a sense? How can I be who I needed when I was younger? Those sorts of themes come up, particularly on an emotional level, because Cancer is very much connected to the emotions. Cancer is ruled by the moon, right? At home in the fourth house of home and family and place of living and roots and ancestry and, security, those kinds of things, emotional security. And so these themes may be triggered for us at this time of this eclipse. And I want to be really clear, right? It's not necessarily like, it doesn't mean July 2nd, that's the date of the eclipse, that's when something's going to happen. There's always a reverberation on either side of the event. And so it's very likely that you already know or have some kind of inkling as to what this is about for you. And just know that these are the themes that are continuing right through this eclipse cycle until, and after July 2020, because, the energies still reverberate out on the other side of that for 3-6 months kind of thing. So, but the themes that will be brought to our attention are home, place of living, family, our tribe, who feels like family, our foundations, mothers, mothering, nurturing, our private life, our domestic life, our inner life, issues that specifically have to do with women, our emotional security. And the thing about this eclipse is it's a new moon, right? It's like a new moon on steroids. You may have heard other people refer to eclipses like that. So because it's a new moon, this one, it's really amplified. And at new moons are always about something new coming in, us initiating something new beginnings in some way, shape, or form. So this eclipse is no exception. Incidentally, before I get any further, I just want to say to you that if I'm keeping an eye on the time, if this runs, long, this intro, I'm going to do the intro as part 1, and then I'm going to do all of the signs as part 2, rather than breaking the signs up, okay? So somebody had suggested that to me last week, and it was funny because I'd sort of thought of that already, that if it continued to happen this way, that's what I would do. So it hasn't been my intention for these videos to go so long, but that's just what's been happening. And in the future, we'll see what happens. I may choose a different format in terms of just doing the intro via video, and then I may do the actual horoscopes in a written format and get into more depth. I'm not really sure. I have other things to kind of take care of first before I kind of really sink my teeth into any kind of major change that may or may not happen with these videos. But if I do go long and it looks like I'll just do part 2 will be all of the signs, okay? So there are several different conversations happening between the planets at the time of this eclipse. And so I'm going to show you the chart now. And as I show you the chart, I will point those out to you. Okay. So first off, we have, of course, now this chart is drawn up for July 2nd for the time of the eclipse. So, you're watching this earlier than that, probably. If not, that's okay too. But just know that this is the chart for the July 2nd total solar eclipse in Cancer. So here we have the sun and the moon at 10 degrees and a little bit of the sign of Cancer, right close to the north node there, right? And so this is sun conjunct moon. The sun and the moon are meeting up in the sky. That's always a new moon. They come together to birth something new. And because it's an eclipse, that's even more profound than just a normal new moon. Okay, so that's the sun and the moon. Opposite that, we have Saturn up here at 17 degrees. So pretty close, within 7 degrees of the sun and moon conjunction, right? And that is about us having to have patience, maybe meeting some obstacles, having to put some hard work in, maybe some, things like traditions may be challenged, rules may get in the way or need to be challenged, these kinds of things, right? Those Saturnian themes. We also have Uranus over here in Taurus, see, sitting at 5 degrees of Taurus, making what we call a sextile, a 60-degree angle within 5 degrees of this solar eclipse. And so that is about sudden insights and opportunities and breakthroughs, right? Sextiles often bring about opportunities. We need to engage with those opportunities and take action, however, right? If they are to serve us in any way. But because it's Uranus, that energy of sudden changes and shifts and aha moments and insights and that kind of thing, then some surprises can happen, some breakthroughs can happen at this time. And I'm saying breakthroughs rather than breakdowns because it's a sextile. So that is a sort of a more optimistic kind of conversation. All right, so we've got that. And then we also have Saturn, which I also pointed out to you up here in that same kind of a conversation, a sextile to Neptune that's now retrograde in Pisces, right? And so this is, again, opportunities to turn dreams into reality, but it will require our patience and our hard work, right? Saturn. But we have the opportunity. We have to do the work, however. And then the last conversation here is that we've got Chiron in Aries. Where's Chiron? Chiron in Aries at 5 degrees, squaring this eclipse, right? Within 5 degrees. I know some people, if you are well-versed in astrology, you may think 5 degrees is a large, what we call orb, a large distance. Evolutionary astrology tends to use a bit of wider orbs, and in my experience thus far, I agree with that, because I think that oftentimes, things, we can sense things even when they're that kind of far apart, right? So, and I don't think 5 degrees is that far apart. So anyways, Chiron's making a square to this conversation here, to this eclipse. And so this has to do with healing our emotional security issues in some way, right? Cancer. so those are the conversations. And then the one last thing I want to point out to you is we have, at the time now of this eclipse, Mercury will have entered Leo, and Mars will just be entering Leo at 0 degrees there. So they are conjuncting each other, right beside each other, right? And they are opposite. Well, I mean, not really opposite, 0 degrees, right? It's right on this axis here. So, but my point is that Mercury and Mars have been doing this dance for a while. And they are now in Leo, and they are continuing to do that dance. And so this is about expressing ourselves clearly and confidently, with self-respect, right, Leo, with encouragement and love. And those the Mercury Mars is actually, I'll just show you again. Mercury Mars is squaring Uranus in Taurus, right? Uranus in Taurus. Sorry, Mercury Mars is squaring Uranus in Taurus right there. And so really I see this as, it's like if you are required to make kind of a sudden decision or action, take a sudden action, right? Mercury, Mars, follow your heart. Follow your heart. That's the way I see this. That doesn't mean be reckless. That doesn't mean do something that's going to hurt yourself or those you care about. Some people have this notion that, I'm going to follow my heart and throw caution to the wind. And that means that you just get to do whatever you want and screw everybody. Unfortunately, that's not optimal. That's not the optimal way to go about things. I am all about doing what's right for you and your soul, and I'm all about boundary setting, and not necessarily following the crowd, not jumping on bandwagons, not people pleasing, these kinds of things. But like everything, there has to be balance, right? And so you have to consider that even if you think it's all about you and it's only impacting you, there's always somebody or something on the other side of that, on the other end of that, right? So we always have to kind of be mindful of that. So that's what I'm going to say about that. And before I finish off this intro and jump into the signs, I just want to say that, this is kind of repeating a little bit of what I said at the beginning, but the years that hold eclipses in your sign or your rising sign, potentially your moon sign too, will be really kind of vital for you. There'll be trigger points, turning points, right? And also years that eclipses take place on your nodal axis, like I mentioned, are also very notable. And of course, again, like if you have angles, planets, points right around the eclipse degrees or in the cardinal signs, right? That's because those cardinal signs are making conversations, whether it be an opposition, a conjunction, or a square. It's having those planets and points in the cardinal signs are having a conversation with the eclipse, right? And so if any of those things are going on for you, you will be sure to feel this eclipse and this eclipse cycle in general. So I'm going to stop here with the intro, and I'm going to jump into another video so I don't run out of time here, and so the camera doesn't cut off. And I'm going to go through all of the signs in that part 2 video. So jump over there and have a listen for your rising sign, your sun sign, and your moon sign, okay? Thanks so much. I so appreciate you being here, and I'll see you over in the next video. Okay, bye-bye.